Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. We have a special story. This is another Bigfoot story from the great state of Ohio. And as you guys know, Ohio is a really hot spot for Bigfoot here in the Midwest. This event occurred in 1978 in Minerva, Ohio. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read you the BFRO reports. And once I do that, I also found some audio of an interview of a grown man that was a child that was living there at the house at the time, and also the sheriff that investigated the incident. Now, I found this video on Small Town Monsters. They made a documentary about this subject, and I'll leave the link in the description. Alright, let's get to it. BFRO reports number 4977, Class A sighting. Evelyn Cayton's family and friends were out on the front porch when they heard noises in the direction of an old chicken coop just to the right of the house. They saw two pairs of yellow eyes that seemed to be reflecting a porch light. Scott Patterson went to his car and turned the headlights on in hopes of getting a better look. The eyes were emitting from what appeared to be two cougar-typed felines. Then the party saw what looked like a large bipedal hairy creature step in front of the large cats as if to protect them. This creature then proceeded to lurch towards Patterson's car. The witnesses fled to the house and called the Stark County Sheriff's Department. While waiting for the deputies, the bipedal creature appeared at the kitchen window, about 4 yards from the kitchen table. Patterson pointed a .22 caliber pistol at it, while Evelyn Cayton loaded a .22 caliber rifle. The creature stood outside the window for close to 10 minutes. They all could clearly see the creature because of the back porch light. They decided they would not shoot at it unless the creature made any advances towards them. The bipedal suddenly left without harming anyone. "It doesn't seem to want to bother anyone," said Mary Ackerman. "It was just curious. We all felt that it wanted to be friends." Deputy Sheriff James Shannon arrived about 15 minutes after the call was made, and about 5 minutes after the creature left the scene. A long stench was still lingering in the area when Deputy Shannon began to interview the witnesses. Shannon later told reporters that it smelled like ammonia sulfur. Extra deputies were brought in, and they searched the entire area on horseback and in jeeps. The land behind the Caytons was an old abandoned strip mine, and beyond that were dense woods going up a gradual hill. Unusual but unsubstantiated footprints were discovered. August 22nd, Miss Mary Ackerman of Minerva drove to the Cayton residence to pick up her daughter and friend. Miss Ackerman is Evelyn Cayton's daughter. As she turned into the driveway, she saw the same creature standing on top of the hill and next to the strip mine. She watched it until it walked out of her view. August 23rd, the creature again appeared at the Cayton residence. Hal Cayton was not sure if it was the same thing. He fired a gunshot into the air and the figure departed. September 8th, during the late daylight hours, Miss Ackerman observed two ape-like animals across the strip mine. She stated that she thought the creatures were standing in a tree, but wasn't sure because of the distance. Again, she watched them for a while until they were no longer visible in the thick weeds. September 9th, Jim Rastetter interviewed Harry Colt, who lives about 5 miles east of Minerva on US 30. He told Jim that he was walking through some woods by his house when he caught a glimpse of an unknown furry animal. Mr. Colt said that the animal was squatting next to a tree and let out a sound similar to a loud cough. Actually, the incidents leading up to the August 21st sighting began about the 1st of the month. Miss Cayton believes the creature's appearance were due to the husband cutting down thick brush next to the pit, and that he also dumped some garbage around for the raccoons. Several nights later, Cayton's grandchildren and their friends came running in the house, crying in a frightened state. They claimed to have seen a large, hairy monster in the pit. Miss Keck, Miss Cayton, and Hal Cayton went outside to see what they had scared them. They saw a creature that was covered with dark, matted hair. They estimated it to be about 300 pounds and 7 feet tall. "It just stood there," said Miss Cayton. "It didn't move, but I almost broke my neck running back down the hill." Miss Cayton claims that she later observed the creature in daylight. It was sitting in the pit picking at the garbage. She could not make out any facial features due to the amount of long hair covering his face. She remembered that the creature had no visible neck. Prior to the August 21st sightings, one of the Cayton's German Shepherds was found dead with a broken neck. The dog had been chained up with a collar to the house. The collar was found next to the dead animal, still tacked to the chain. We can speculate that either the creature jerked the dog out of the collar or the canine was so scared that it broke its own neck, trying to escape. The other shepherd, Missy, was still in a schizophrenic state during our investigations. At times, she is extremely calm and affectionate, and at other occasions, she is scared and vicious. Missy has spent a lot of time digging, which is not uncharacteristic of a canine. However, she dug a tunnel about 8 feet into the ground. This hole is almost large enough to contain 2 medium-sized dogs. Could this be a hiding place for the dog for when the creature returns? Wow. So that was a crazy story, crazy incident. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and play you that audio of the how Cayton, he's a grown man now, so, but, you know, when he was a little kid, all those things were happening. And then after that, I'm going to play you the audio of the Sheriff Jim Shannon, that came and investigated all this. So hope you guys are enjoying it. If you do, make sure you hit that like button for me. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing and all that good stuff. Let's get to it.
Probably a couple years after we moved in, we started hearing noises and some mischief going on around the house, and we always just thought it was a man that lived in the woods. That's what we always thought it was, a hermit lived in the woods. And we had time, we outside, we had an old garage here, and it was always we always hear something behind the garage, and we just thought it was someone messing around. Well, as time went on and everything, it got more and more active. Of course, I was living here at the time. My sister Vicky, on there, she lived in East Palestine at the time. Linda Jones lived in the trailer park, and my sister Becky lived in Cayton at the time. We were just all here because it was a family. A weekend. We always got together on weekends as family. We always had rocks thrown and messing around, knocking on the trees, howls, screeches. My mom, myself, and my sister, and I believe it was my aunt sitting here at the kitchen table right where we're at now. And at that time, instead of the French doors, we had 3 windows there, big windows. And we're sitting here, and my mom happened to look up and seen this thing leaning down looking into the window. Well, of course, it startled us. And we were watching there, and stood there probably a minute, maybe 2 minutes, then it walked away. So, well, we couldn't get out that, so we had to go out that door. And we walked around the back, and we looked around, and we seen it just walking way off the top of the bank. We came back in the house probably 10, 15 minutes later, and next thing you know, we hit tapping on the side of the house, tapping on the windows and everything, just trying to get our attention. It wasn't harming nobody, but Scott Patterson, yes, I had a gun at that time. They pointed it at the creature, and it was, my mom told him, don't shoot, because you know, at that time we still thought it was a man. Don't shoot because you don't know what, you know, don't want to hurt nobody. So he just pointed at the creature, whatever you want to call it, and it just turned and walked away. Like, it's no big deal. It's not a threat to me, and I know you're not going to shoot me, so it just walked away. And it stayed quiet for a couple of days, but then it started coming back around. When we first started seeing it, it was, I would say, between 6 and 7 foot tall, covered in hair. It was. It still had facial features. It wasn't completely like a rag mop, you know, over the face and everything. It had facial features and everything. Had eyes, you could see. But it probably weighed a good 400 to 500 pounds, I'd say, maybe more, you know, muscular, because you could see it wasn't like I said, like a mop hanging from its arms or anything. It was hairy, but you could still see the muscular physique and all that. But yeah, it was a fairly good sized creature, being, whatever you want to call it. Jim and I became fairly good friends, and he became fairly good friends with the family and everything. Yeah, I remember when Jim came down a lot. He was here a lot. Jim and his partner, Sam, they was the first ones ever to investigate it for my family. And they'd come down, they'd go up on a strip mine with us, they'd look around and investigate and see what they find. They found a bedding right there behind the house, approximately 12 foot round. And they had one of their deputies come down and lay in it, and they said it looked like a baby laying on a king-size bed. And I think that was the same time that they found the droppings and things like that. And Yeah, Jim and Sam was down there almost every night for a couple weeks, even after hours. When they get off duty, they came out and sat down here with my parents and us. Mid-70s, late 70s, that's when it really started getting active, and that's when all the publicity started coming around. And we seen it walking on the banks out there, and like I said, we thought it was just some guy messing around. So one night it was messing around, it was really bothersome. You know, wanted attention or just, and my brother, myself, and 2 or 3 of our friends, we chased this thing down. And this was in '78. And we got it on the other side of the strip mine bank, and we jumped on it, thinking it was just a man messing around. And at that time, it threw the 5 of us off of us, like, you know, it's just a guy throwing some kids off his back, you know, wrestling around with them. What happened to bite my brother, and he had teeth mark probably 3.5 inches in diameter on his back, and we could, you know, they took pictures of it and everything like that. But it ran down the bank and it jumped over the side, and that was it for the night. The dog we had at the time, it was a German Shepherd, and when we got her, she was a guard dog. We got her off the neighbor, and she was, I mean, when he fed her, he had to hold a stick because she was that mean. And for some reason, he gave her to my dad, and my dad brought her over here, and it wasn't within 48 hours. That dog was just as calm and gentle as could be. And this thing was messing around, and the dog dug a tunnel. I'd say probably 5-6 foot deep, and that's where the dog would sleep at night. And whether this thing liked barking dogs or what, I don't know. But yeah, we woke up one night, the dog was still in a fit, and we woke up the next day, and the dog was laying on the thing with his neck broke, still on his chain, and had plenty of room where he didn't choke himself out. You know what I mean? He was just laying there dead with his neck broke. There was one gentleman lived down there at the time, and it was in the same duration that this was going on here heavily, that it came down and beat on his window of his trailer, and I'm assuming the sheriff and everybody talked to him like they talked to me. Whether he gave his report, I don't know. But yeah, he'd reported a few times. Actually, a couple of people reported that there was a mishaps going on down there also. Every time that this thing was around, we always seen a cat. Yeah, it always looked like a cougar. Well, according to the fishing game, cougars don't exist in Ohio. Well, they did. You know, even they can't tell me that they didn't, because I know what a cougar looks like. I always did know what one. Yeah, but every time the thing was around, we always seen a cat with it. What the sequence was with them, or what the connection was, I have no idea. But it was always looked like cougars that was with it. We still see the footprints, and we still get the knocking on the trees, and we still get the knocking on the house and on the windows and everything, but it's never tried to break into my house. It's never threatened anybody. It's just pretty much just knocking on the house saying, hey, I'm still here. We had several people coming in trucks and everything, drinking beer with guns, wanting to go back in the woods, hunting for the woods, wanted to go see if they could find this thing. And my mom and them said, no, you know, get off the property. We don't want it, you know. It's just not like that. But yeah, we've pretty much started turning people away. Bigfoot hunters, and they was investigating this, and they have all this research on it. Well, as far as I knew, my parents knew, it didn't even exist until then. You know what I mean? So what their criteria was, or what they had reports of, I don't know. But yeah, we had a lot of people coming saying they was Bigfoot hunters, and they did this investigation, and there's proof of it back here. Then yeah, my mom Dad pretty much turned them away too. Well, anything I can say about my family is that they never was into wanting the attention. My mom and dad, when we grew up, we keep to ourselves. You know, we never wanted the publicity and everything. And my mom and dad was never the type of people to lash out at somebody just because of what they said. It was just they are who they are. We are who we are, and sooner or later, what comes around goes around, you know? That's just the way my family has always been. But to be ridiculed like they were, and my dad was very protective over my mom. I'm really surprised he didn't fly off sometimes, but that's just not how my family was. I just want everyone to know that my mom and dad didn't make it up. They wasn't that type of people. The MINERVA monster is just not a monster. It's just a thing.
August of 1978. Our shift started at 10:30, and as I left the sheriff's office to head out into my area, I got a call to go to a house on Lincoln Street East, which is Route 30, US 30. And the address I don't recall, but it was a little bit west of Minerva in Paris Township. And the people that lived there had seen a peculiar object or a peculiar thing. So I drove down there. It's probably about a 10, 12-mile drive from when I got the call, and pulled in their long lane driveway up to the house. And of course I had my spotlight on looking around to see what I could see, and of course I saw nothing. But when I got out of the car, they were waiting on me at the door. The people that lived there were waiting on me at the door. And when I got out of the car, there was a pretty strong ammonia smell. It was the first thing that I noticed, and I thought how peculiar that was. And kind of put it aside for the moment and met the people at the house, who were obviously distressed. They were really distressed. I talked to them about, well, what had happened and all these sorts of things, and got them calmed down to the point that they could pretty much tell me what had happened in the last hour. And what they described to me was hearing rocks or something hit the roof of their house. One of them saw a large, hairy object up against their house. And of course, panicked, freaked out, ran in and told everyone else. And I think, if I remember rightly, one other person in that family saw it as well. I remember they described it as hairy and tall. And I think the mother told me that it was as tall as the eave of the house where the roof met the sidewalls. I went out to the chicken coop where they said this thing was, and I couldn't see anything. I found no tracks of it or anything like that. But the ammonia smell was pretty strong. I mean, it was noticeable. I found some fur that was on a nail that was protruding out of this old chicken coop that was there. It was grayish brown, and it was almost like a mohair, or a real fine, fuzzy kind of hair. And I collected it. But back then, DNA wasn't a very commonplace thing that we used. So I ended up submitting it later on to a college professor at Malone here in Cayton, who couldn't really tell me what it was from or anything like that. So they were calmed down, and I kind of could do nothing else there that night. I was a deputy sheriff assigned to the patrol division of the Stark County Sheriff's Office. Everything that came down the road, traffic accidents, bar fights, whatever arose, we responded to and dealt with. Back then we had 4 patrol zones. They were basically the northwest end of the county, the northeast end, the southwest end, and the southeast end, where Minerva is situated. On the night in question, I was assigned to the southeast end, or the Paris Township, East Cayton. There's a number of small little villages out that way, and more or less farming or agricultural areas. So the following morning when the sun came up, we got, a couple of us took out a couple of our 4-wheel drive Jeeps and went back down through there. There was behind these folks' house was a strip mine, and they tried to rehab it, but it still had a lot of junk in it and all that sorts of things. So we went down there and looked, and it was a nice day that day, and spent a couple hours looking around and found nothing. In a search in the daylight just behind their house, I found a bone, and it was an old bone, but I took it anyway, and we submitted it again to Malone College, and they determined it was a jawbone from a cow. So that kind of pretty much ended my involvement with that case right then and there for that period of time. Someone traveling on Route 30 during that same period of time, the summer of '78, had also seen this creature run across the highway in front of them, but never reported it because of the nobody would believe me kind of thing. I felt bad for the Caytons because they reported this, and I don't think everyone believed them. I think a lot of people believed them. I believed them, but I think there were people in the community that there's people all over the world that disbelieve this. There's no doubt in my mind then or today that those folks saw something. No question in my mind. There was no booze involved. I didn't go in and say, "Hey, were you all drinking tonight?" But in conversation with them, you could certainly tell. And there's no doubt in my mind that they saw something. What they saw, I guess, is the question. But they definitely saw something. They were terrified. They were frightened to no end. Took me. I was probably there that night. I'll bet I was there the better part of a couple of hours, talking to them and reassuring them that everything would be okay. But no, I'm thoroughly convinced they saw something. When we went back out that following morning, the whole shift went. There were 5 of us on that shift. So the whole shift went out, and I think everybody genuinely, when I told them what had happened, I think everybody genuinely believed it and wanted to see if we could find anything. Whether or not they believed that Bigfoot exists or not, nobody really ever said, and we moved on from it then. But no, there was no talk of disbelieving the people or anything like that. Well, I read about it. I didn't go into an exhaustive research of it, but I read a little bit about it because I was curious too. When you see somebody, a family that was that as terrified as they were, there was something to that. So, yeah, I was interested in it. Could it have really happened there? It's quite possible. If I guess I don't know if I'm a believer or non-believer, but I know I believe what I saw that night, and what I smelled that night, and the shape those people were in when I got there. So something happened.
All right, there you guys go. What a story, huh? Imagine that. Imagine living there as a little kid and interacting with Bigfoot like that on a daily, well, not a daily basis, but seemed like quite often. Seemed like the Bigfoot or the creature, whatever type of creature it was pretty peaceful, except for that dog incident. Not too sure about that dog incident. But yeah, so let's show you here with Google satellite, Google Earth satellites, exactly where this happened. This is the house right here, this brown one. And I believe that the strip mine is this little strip right through there. If you guys can see that little strip right through here, I think that's the strip mine they're talking about right behind the house. I don't think it's this pond over here. It's literally right there behind the house, I believe. That's where I think it is. I mean, you guys leave me some comments. Let me know where you think that strip mine is. They said they go right behind the house, and the strip mine's right there. And you know, the chicken coop was over here, right here in this area. It was right back in, right in here. So, all right. So yeah, it was an interesting story. And remember, I got that audio from Small Mountain Monsters in their video, the Minerva monster. Now they go in more depth with the people, and they talk about different things. They talk about the town, and they also go into where the family here, the Cayton family, started getting harassed for, you know, people were making fun of them, like, you see Bigfoot, blah blah blah. But I didn't want to put any of that in this video. This video was just basically about the incident. But if you guys go watch that other video, Minerva Monsters by Small Town Monsters, and I really do recommend it, you'll get the whole story, the whole back thing about how they got, you know, harassed, and other interviews, you know. So you guys make sure to go check that out. Alright, so I guess that's where we'll leave it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button for me. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel. And leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about this story. And let me know what you think that strip mine is, that little slice right behind their house, or do you think it's that pond over there? Regardless, you see all the trees and all the woods here. And, you know, Ohio, the southeastern part of Ohio where this is beginning right here, it gets more forested and more hilly, and so there's a lot of areas for this creature to live down through there. And I've even had my own little encounter down here, and I made that video, and I'll leave that link for you guys too. Alright, so until next time, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, all that good stuff. Remember, where there's a WILLSTAR, there's a way. We will see you guys later. Take care.